Okay.
Welcome to this week's Weekly Death Digest. Tonight we'll be talking about reincarnation.
All right, so there we are.
So, Steve, do you believe in reincarnation?
Well, I'm just kind of sitting with the word now, reincarnation. It's like incarnating again. And the one thing I'm wondering about that is it possible to come around again? And if so, what does that mean? I'm thinking about Heraclitus' view that you can't step into the same river twice. So is there such a thing as reincarnation, or is it always a fresh incarnation?
That's a good question. I just want to, since you mentioned Heraclitus, and want to throw out my own reference to Voltaire, who said that it's not more surprising to be born twice than it is to be born once.
That's good.
Yeah. So, yes, that is a question. I mean, it's a question that exists in life. It's just without reference to death at all, which is, do we stay the same from one moment to the next? Does anything stay the same from one moment to the next? And what this Eric, was it Weiss that you know from CIS?
Yeah.
I mean, what he says is that what survives from moment to moment is actually the form, the ideal form, the Platonic ideal of an object, not the object itself, which I think is interesting. And the implication would be for reincarnation that no, it's not the same person that reincarnates. It's what you might call a form of the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And that opens up a lot of interesting possibilities. At least that's what I assume he would say. I haven't gotten to that part of his book yet.
Okay.
But I think that yes, if there's no way that you can stay the same from one moment to the next in life, then it seems very odd to suppose that you would stay the same from one moment to the next in death, or that the exact same person would be reborn that died, as if there were some freezing of the form of that person during death, during the afterlife. Seems like that's a property of the universe as a whole, and so it wouldn't change even in the afterworld, assuming it's actually true.
Right, that's true. So you would expect there's to be some sort of continuum of change that extends beyond our lifetime into, I don't know what you call it, the death time, or beyond life, if death is in fact the bridge between lives. So if
Right.
existence is an unbroken continuum, punctuated by these moments of arising of different forms, and we call that form our individuality, then it would make sense that we never come back, as the same form twice. And yet there might be similarities in the pattern, and I'm not sure what accounts for the similarities. Why do people remember things from previous experiences if that's true?
That's right. Well, and it touches on the nature of memory as well. Scientists have shown that our memories are actually not necessarily replications of the original events, but recreations of those individual events in light of current experience and knowledge and needs and desires and so on. So it's easy to see, for instance, that I could have a memory of being, Napoleon, let's say, without having been Napoleon.
Yeah.
And it's possible that memories, and one theory of reincarnation is that memories are sort of out there for the taking, and that we assemble them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the old one for one person becomes a different person in the next life is actually one new unit is made up out of a bunch of memories that are absorbed during the interlife, during the bardo of death, the time between death and rebirth. And so the appearance of reincarnation is more that. It's actually the appearance more than it is the actual evidence of reincarnation itself. It's not the same person that was reborn. It's something else that was reborn, but it just looks like the same person because the new person has appropriated the identity of the memory.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent point, and I really like that phrasing of it, that memory is recreation of event. It's not remembering of event. It's not putting it back together the way it was precisely, but it's recreating given the existing conditions, which are always changing. And I also like that in the sense that it sort of debunks the myth that there's something in us that is immutable, that sort of travels between life and life. That doesn't seem quite to be. I don't really know what the metaphysics are to support that perspective. And it also points towards some broader thinkers such as Sheldrake, talking about morphogenic fields and laws of nature as a form of cosmic memory as well. So all these could be other influences beyond the human realm that might impact what reincarnation looks like, life to life or moment to moment.
Right, right. But I think you're touching the key point of all of this, which is, and it applies to life and rebirth and reincarnation as well, which is, what is it that is the same from one moment to the next that enables you to call something same person or a reincarnated person? In other words, is it just, one possible criterion is mathematical determination, so that if 99.7% of the atoms of the person at time A are in the same person in time B, then that's the same person. But if it drops below, say, 80%, then that's a different person, you might say. That's actually a silly example in one sense, but it clearly raises the issue of what does it mean to be the same person now as it meant 50 years ago when I was being born.
Yeah.
40 years ago when I was 10 years old. In what ways am I the same person, and in what ways am I not the same person? The theory, actually, I think in philosophy it's called a theory of personal identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously applies to reincarnation with full force. What's your view of that?
Well,
what is it that makes a person the same from one moment to the next?
Well, I think it's simply a habit. It's a habit of thoughts of. It's a habit of thinking. Right? We assume we're the same person moment to moment, and we use that assumption as a source of identity. Whereas there's actually, only circumstantial evidence to substantiate that we're the same person moment to moment. We certainly look the same, but our atoms are different, our memories are slightly different, our capacities are different. But it seems like it's a projection of the past into the future, or into the present, that keeps us stuck in the belief that we're the same identity moment to moment.
Well, here's where Carlos Castaneda comes to the rescue, I think. You could say that Carlos Castaneda, I think, would say that what makes us the same person from one moment to the next is the position of the assemblage point. And that's, in theory, infinitely movable. But it's locked in place by our habits, as you're saying, among other things.
Uh-huh.
And we can always change, however, by engaging in certain sorcerer's practices, or who knows, perhaps even by intent. However, a world in which your identity is constantly shifting from place to place sounds like a pretty freaky world, a pretty scary world, and so we give up flexibility for security in that sense.
Yeah. But I think you're right. If we can shift our assemblage point even just a little bit, who knows what could be possible? You hear about these sorcerers being able to shapeshift, right? They don't have a fixed identity. It's very fluid because they shifted their assemblage point to a reality or perspective which allows for this to take place. So that's the question, is what would it take to shift our assemblage point such that we can give up this habit of being ourselves in a consistent way every single moment of our lives.
Right. Let me take this to another level, in line with the thing I wrote for the blog, the Omega Inquiries .blogspot.com, the Omega Inquiries.blogspot.com, which has the article on how a rock knows how to stay the same from one moment to the next. I mean, why do inanimate objects stay the same from one moment to the next when they do? It seems like similar problem with people, but also a different problem in part.
Yeah, I mean, maybe nature or the universe has the same habits in that it persists with these memories moment to moment to moment. These may be much longer moments than we're used to, maybe stretch for eons from this larger perspective. But there does seem to be some consistent thread that maintains these habits over time. I think you called it the magical self-making juice in a previous blog post, which I think is an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's now I'm not so sure that it works out in this context, in the sense that I'm sure if you that scientists even now could look at a rock in space and calculate the amount of time it would take to break down in ordinary physical circumstances based upon the movement of atoms and the principles of molecular decay in an object, and they could tell you how long, a particular object might last. Like a piece of carbon might last for so long, whereas a diamond might last virtually forever, or for as long as the universe itself in its own state, as long as it doesn't meet some different or new conditions. So in that sense, it seems like an inanimate object staying the same has to do with the laws of physics and quantum physics in particular, and how you understand the decay of an object. So is that really, is there a question of identity there in some sense, or no?
That's a good question. I mean, if only we could ask rocks what their experience is, because their atoms are certainly changing. They're flashing in and out of existence. There's subatomic flux going on every moment, and what's to say that's the same rock moment to moment to moment just because our perspective says it is?
Well, that's a good point. And Weiss, in his book, actually says that everything does have experience in the same way, that in a similar way, which corresponds with the shamanic dictum that everything is alive. That everything has a link with consciousness, with awareness, with existence, although it's radically different in some kinds of objects of existence than others, but it's nevertheless real.